So I've been using the Xbox Series Elite 2 core controller for about 5 months now, and I posted a review a couple weeks or so, I believe, after I purchased the controller, and I had a lot of really good things to say about that controller at that time period. But now that some time has passed and I've been using this controller consistently, I've even tried some of the alternatives that are out there in the meantime. And is this controller still worth buying after all that time that I've put into it? And in this video, I'm going to go over some of the things that I've really come to like about this controller over that time span, as well as some of the little quirks that I didn't really care for so much with this. So let's take a look. So part of the reason I decided to do an update on this controller 5 months later was when I initially purchased this controller, and I go over that in the original review that I did on this controller, but when I initially purchased this controller or received this controller, it wasn't working out of the box. So I was worried that after all the time that I owned it, that I would start having issues and problems with it due to my poor experience the first time, and I'm happy to say that for the most part I've had no issues at all with the secondary Xbox Series Elite controller that I received, so that's good. And to start off, like last time that I went over in the previous video, I like the look of this controller, I like the aesthetics of the controller, and after having used this controller quite a bit, my son even having used it a handful of times as well, I like that the type of finish they used, it hasn't got stained or gross looking like I've had with some cheaper controllers that I've owned and used over the time period, especially seems to be partial with colors like white. And so for me, it still looks really good, and I like the aesthetic of this controller. And to reiterate, after having used this for quite a bit of time, I know I talked about in the previous video about the customization, which is kind of the main reason a lot of people are going to purchase this controller, but I didn't realize over having owned this controller for as long as I have now, how much I enjoyed the custom profiles and how much I actually use them. So I find myself consistently changing up different profiles depending on the games that I'm playing, which are primarily Call of Duty type games and Gears of War type games, and I found that I actually do make use of this feature more than I expected. So the ability to be able to swap between different profiles with different configurations that are more personalized towards that game, I find very useful, and I even find that in games like Call of Duty, I barely ever use the face buttons now to do things like jump or crouch. I purely just use the back paddles on the backside, which is awesome. Now, another thing that I've really been surprised by is the battery life. And I'm not going to tell you guys that I'm some excessive gamer at this junction of my life, despite this channel being all about gaming. But what I mean is, I don't do, 20-hour play sessions every time. But when I do play for hours at a time. And I found that with this controller, I think I've charged it twice now. It's been pretty good. Overall, I peg the battery life having to be around 40 hours or so, which is incredible because I barely charge this controller, and it seems like it's almost always holding a very large charge considering. So I think this is a huge positive, especially because the original series controllers that come with the console, if you're using actual batteries, even good batteries, they tend to die pretty quick. I also even found when I was using my play and charge kits on them, they also die pretty quick as well. So the type of battery that's used in this is fantastic, and it holds a very long charge. Now, the other thing that I really like is the feel of the buttons. So the controller itself, the joysticks, the triggers, the buttons, they just have a nice tightness to them. Not saying that the original series controller didn't, but even the fact that I have the ability to change the precision as well of the joysticks, it just makes the controller feel more comfortable overall, especially when I'm jumping back to a different controller. So like when I'm looking at my other series controller that I was using recently with my son on his Xbox, it just doesn't feel the same, and I don't think I can go back as a result because it doesn't feel as comfortable, and the buttons don't have the same level of tightness, if that makes sense. that I like with this controller. And so that's also partially the ability to customize it to my liking, which is awesome. But it's just something that, for me, I love the way this feels overall, and the way the triggers work and the buttons feel, I think is fantastic. And I've also got accustomed to the D-pad as well, which I also really like the way it's designed on this controller, and I think it feels fantastic for what it is. Now, after having had this controller for as long as I've had it, I do again want to revisit what I started this portion of the video with, and I want to say that it seems really hit and miss with these controllers for what you get. And what I mean by that is, it seems like even since I purchased this controller, I'm a part of some Xbox groups, and I've seen people saying that they bought this controller broken out of the box, or they bought this controller with a weird quirk that makes it not as good as it should be. And it seems like, for whatever reason, the manufacturing of these controllers is very, very hit and miss, and I don't know why. I don't know exactly what Microsoft's reasoning is. I don't know if it's a luck of the draw thing. I don't know. But it does seem to be an issue that hasn't really stopped with this type of controller, which, again, I've bought many, many, many Xbox controllers now, and I've only ever had a controller from Microsoft, an official Microsoft controller, fail on me out of the box with the Series Elite 2 controller, and I don't seem to be the only one. It seems to be a consistent thing. Now, a secondary thing as well that that's kind of arisen over the time I've been using the controller is, I'm not sure what exactly it is that's caused this, but it seems to be that there's just a slight sensitivity to the A button that I don't have on my other Xbox controller, and I even tested this after the fact to see if I was right or wrong. And I know it sounds like a trivial thing, but I found in games, especially like Gears of War, where you're holding the A button down for an extended period of time, if you're not almost center with that A button and you're on the sides or the ridges of the A button, which sometimes happens when I'm playing a video game, and I'm sure it happens to many others, the A button basically doesn't respond. And in other words, it's not a major thing, and it's something that I've just noticed, but I noticed in games like Gears of War, the character I'm playing as just stops running for a sec. And that seems to be something that's linked to the way the A button is placed on this design of controller versus the original series level controllers. It's a little quirk, it's something that's kind of thrown me off, but I've gotten used to it, and I'm not sure, maybe it's just my controller, right? I could just be mine, but it seems to be an issue that I'm having, and it's something I've noticed over the time that I've owned the controller. It's not a major issue, but it's something that it's a little bit of a quirk that I've had to get accustomed to. And lastly, really the big thing I want to point out is, again, I told you guys in the last video, I like the aesthetic of this controller. I wanted a white Series Elite controller. I like the look of the white controllers. I think it just adds a nice accent to my all black Series X. I like the look. So for me, I wanted a white controller, but at this junction, they're still very pricey if you wanted to get the accessories kit that comes with the black Xbox Series Elite controller. So that's still a consideration. It doesn't seem like the pricing has changed much over the last little while. It has only been 5 months, so who knows? There's probably going to be some big holiday sales as well where you'll see these things drop. I'm not sure. But at this junction, if you're buying it at this time, it's still very pricey if you want a all-white controller and you want all the different accessories that should come with that controller. So overall, really, other than a couple minor things, I think this is a fantastic controller. I've enjoyed using this controller through all of the different games that I've played. I recently beat Resident Evil 4, the remake, while playing with it. I seriously really think this controller, if you want a pro-level controller or a controller that offers a lot more customizability and you want to spend the money, the Elite Series 2 controller is fantastic. Now, this video, obviously, I'm talking about the core. It's pretty much the same as the Big Brother configuration that you can get, but for me, this is a fantastic pro-level style controller. So if you guys are in the market for one and you don't get one broken out of the box, this is a great option for your Xbox gaming.